Have you ever felt the warmth of love slowly turn cold? The way someone once looked at you with adoration now feels distant, indifferent, almost like they've become a stranger? Have you ever asked yourself, why does love change? Where does it go? One day, they were your safe haven, your source of comfort. Now, they barely acknowledge your presence. The laughter that once flowed effortlessly between you has faded into silence. Conversations feel forced, their gaze drifts elsewhere, and deep down, you sense the painful truth. You are no longer the center of their world. But why? Why does love that once seemed unshakable fade away? Does love simply die? Or does it transform into something else? And most importantly, how do we recognize when someone has stopped loving us before they even say a word? In Zen and Buddhist philosophy, love is not something we can possess, no matter how deeply we feel it. It is not an object to be kept, nor a promise set in stone. Instead, love is like the morning mist, soft, serene, and seemingly eternal, yet destined to disappear as the sun rises. This is the truth of impermanence, Anicca, the fundamental law that governs all things, including emotions, relationships, and attachments. The Buddha once said, "Just as a river never clings to the banks it passes, so too does the heart flow from one state to another." This means that love does not vanish. It simply moves, evolves, and sometimes leaves us behind. But here's the secret. When love fades, it never disappears in an instant. It happens slowly, silently, like the tide withdrawing from the shore. And if you look closely, you'll notice two undeniable signs that reveal the moment someone's love for you is slipping away. In today's video, we will explore two powerful signs that indicate someone no longer loves you. We will delve into the wisdom of Zen and Buddhist teachings, uncovering the deeper truths behind why love changes and how to let go with peace rather than pain. We will also share real-life stories and a timeless Zen parable that will shift your perspective on love, attachment, and the art of acceptance. By the end of this journey, you will no longer see love as something to cling to, but as something to experience, cherish, and ultimately release when the time comes. So, if you have ever faced the pain of losing love, if you have ever felt someone slipping away and wondered why, stay with me. This could change the way you see love forever. If you find value in exploring deep wisdom, self-growth, and the teachings of Zen, I invite you to support this channel. Hit the subscribe button and join our community here at Zen Mind Journey, where we uncover life's greatest lessons through the lens of Zen and Buddhist wisdom. Like this video if you believe that love should be understood, not feared. Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Have you ever felt love fading away? How did you cope with it? Your story could help someone else on their journey. Now let's begin. Why does love change? The Zen perspective. In Buddhist philosophy, impermanence, Anicca, is one of the fundamental truths that govern existence. Nothing in this world is permanent, not our thoughts, not our emotions, and certainly not our relationships. Everything is in a state of continuous transformation, whether we recognize it or not. Love, in particular, is one of the most profound yet misunderstood aspects of impermanence. We often believe that if love is real, it should remain constant. We expect the affection, passion, and connection we once shared with someone to be unwavering, as if it were immune to time and change. But reality does not work this way. Love, like all things, ebbs and flows. It moves, transforms, and sometimes fades, not because it was false, but because it was always meant to evolve. Buddhism teaches that suffering, dukkha, arises from our attachment to things that are inherently impermanent. When we cling to love, hoping it will never change, we set ourselves up for pain. The Buddha once said, "Just as a river never clings to the banks it passes, so too does the heart flow from one state to another." Love is like this river. It does not belong to us, nor can we control its direction. It comes into our lives, bringing warmth and connection, but it also continues on its path, sometimes drifting away despite our deepest desires. In Zen philosophy, nature is the greatest teacher of impermanence. If we observe the world around us, we can see that love behaves much like the changing elements of nature. Love is like a river. It is constantly moving, flowing through different stages, sometimes deep and steady, other times shallow and uncertain. When two people are in love, Their connection may be strong and unwavering, but over time, the currents may shift. Some rivers dry up, while others change course, no longer flowing in the same direction. Love is like the autumn leaves. In the peak of summer, trees are full of life, their leaves vibrant and strong. But as the seasons change, leaves begin to wither and fall, not because the tree has failed, but because change is inevitable. Relationships, too, go through seasons. There is a time of growth and connection, but also a time of transformation and letting go. Love is like the wind. You cannot hold it in your hands, nor can you force it to stay. The wind moves freely, sometimes caressing your skin with a gentle breeze, other times vanishing without a trace. Love, too, comes into our lives unexpectedly, filling us with warmth, only to fade when its time is up. A great Zen master once said, "A flower does not bloom forever, but its beauty is no less because of its fleeting nature." Love, like a flower, is meant to be appreciated in the present, not feared for its inevitable departure. The pain of love fading often comes not from love itself, but from our resistance to change. There is a Zen story of a young man who was deeply in love. One day, his beloved began to drift away from him. Her words became distant, her presence no longer as warm. Heartbroken, he traveled to seek the wisdom of a great Zen master. "Master," the young man asked, "why is she slipping away from me? I love her as deeply as I always have, yet she is no longer the same." The master took the young man to a still pond. He handed him a small stone and said, "Throw this into the water." The young man did as he was told. As the stone hit the surface, ripples spread across the pond, distorting the reflection of the sky above. "This is love," the master explained. "At first, it is clear and still, reflecting beauty in its purest form. But over time, ripples appear. Life, experiences, and emotions create movement, changing the reflection you once knew. You expect the pond to remain unchanged, but love, like water, cannot stay still forever." The young man, still troubled, asked, "But what if I want her to stay? What if I want to hold on to the love we once had?" The master smiled gently. "Would you try to stop the wind? Would you beg the river to stop flowing?" Love, too, is meant to move. It is not something to possess, but something to experience. If you try to hold on to it, you will only grasp at air. The young man nodded in understanding. He realized that love was not something he could demand or keep unchanged. It was something to embrace in its moment and release when the time came. One of the greatest misunderstandings about love is the belief that it is something we can own. We speak of our love as if it were a possession, something that belongs to us permanently. But the truth is, love is a guest, not a possession. It comes into our lives, offering beauty, growth, and connection, but it is never truly ours to keep. When we understand the impermanence of love, we no longer suffer when it changes. Instead, we learn to cherish it while it is present and let it go with gratitude when it fades. This does not mean love is meaningless. On the contrary, it makes love even more precious. For love is not defined by how long it lasts, but by the depth of presence we bring to it while it is here. And so, the real question is not, how do I keep love from changing, but rather, how do I love fully, knowing it will one day change? The two signs that love is fading. Love rarely disappears all at once. More often than not, it fades gradually, like the last ember of a dying fire. People don't wake up one morning and suddenly stop loving. It happens in silence, through subtle but undeniable changes. If you look closely, you'll see the truth before it's spoken. In Zen philosophy, impermanence, Anicca, teaches us that all things, including love, are in constant motion. Love flows like a river, sometimes deep and powerful, other times slow and shallow. And when someone's heart starts to move in a different direction, they leave behind two silent signs that reveal the truth before they say a word. 1. They withdraw their presence. Imagine walking through a garden every morning, feeling the warmth of the sunlight and the scent of fresh blossoms. Then, one day, the sun is hidden behind thick clouds. The flowers still stand, but they no longer bloom as vibrantly. Something is missing. This is what happens when love begins to fade. It is not a sudden disappearance, but a gradual retreat. At first, everything seems normal. They still greet you, still respond to your messages, still sit beside you. But if you look closely, something has changed. They are physically present but emotionally distant. Conversations feel strained, as if they are speaking out of obligation rather than genuine connection. Their laughter, once spontaneous and warm, now seems forced or missing altogether. They no longer reach out first. You find yourself initiating conversations, planning time together, and trying to bridge the growing distance. They are still there, but not really there. The story of a silent goodbye. Kenji and Yuki had been together for years. Their love had always been filled with deep conversations, quiet moments of understanding, and the kind of laughter that made time disappear. But one day, something changed. At first, it was subtle. Yuki still sat beside Kenji, but her body was slightly turned away. The warmth in her eyes had dimmed. Conversations that once lasted for hours now ended in minutes. Kenji reassured himself. She's just stressed. She's tired. But as days turned into weeks, the distance between them grew wider. Yuki rarely started conversations anymore. When Kenji spoke, she would nod absent-mindedly, lost in her own thoughts. The way she looked at him had changed. Her gaze felt like it was searching for something else, something beyond him. Kenji finally asked, "Is something wrong?" But Yuki only smiled, shook her head, and said, "No, everything's fine." This is how love fades. It does not end with a sudden explosion. It dissolves, piece by piece, in the silence of unspoken truths. Why do people withdraw instead of speaking honestly? If someone no longer loves you, why don't they just say it? Why do they slowly pull away instead of telling you outright? The answer lies in emotional avoidance. 1. They may not fully understand their own feelings yet. Love doesn't disappear overnight. People often go through a period of uncertainty where they feel the shift inside but haven't fully accepted it. 2. They don't want to hurt you. Confrontation is difficult, especially when it involves breaking someone's heart. Instead of saying, "I don't love you anymore," they unconsciously create distance, hoping you will sense it on your own. 3. They fear regret. If they admit out loud that their love is fading, there is no turning back. They hesitate, holding on to what's left, even if it no longer feels the same. But the truth is, love cannot exist where presence is absent. When someone's heart is no longer invested in you, their presence becomes an illusion. They are physically there, but emotionally, they have already started to walk away. 2. They become someone else. The second sign of fading love is even more painful than silence. It is transformation. The person who once knew your heart better than anyone, who shared your inside jokes, who finished your sentences, now feels like a stranger. Their voice, their expressions, their very essence seem different. They laugh at different things. Their responses feel rehearsed, like they are being polite rather than genuinely engaged. They make decisions without considering you. Things that once involved both of you now feel like their choices. It's as if they have shed their old self, the version of them that once loved you, and have stepped into a new identity, one that no longer includes you. A love that transformed. Samantha and James had been together for 5 years. They had built a life filled with shared dreams, travel plans, late-night talks, and a deep emotional connection that felt unshakable. Then, one day, Samantha noticed a shift. James, the man who once loved quiet evenings at home, now preferred to be out with new friends. His texts became brief. His responses lost warmth. At first, she convinced herself it was just a phase. But as time went on, she realized the painful truth. James was no longer the same person. He spoke about things she didn't recognize. He laughed in a way that felt foreign. His eyes, once filled with love, now carried a distant, unreadable expression. Then came the final realization. James no longer saw her in the same way. What once was love had transformed into something else, perhaps nostalgia, perhaps friendship, but no longer passion. Why does this happen? Why do people seem to become someone else when love fades? The answer lies in the nature of impermanence. Zen teaches that identity is fluid. No one remains the same. We are constantly evolving, shaped by experiences, thoughts, and emotions. When two people fall in love, they intertwine their identities, like two trees growing side by side. Their roots connect, their branches weave together, and for a time, they exist as one. But as time passes, those roots may begin to untangle. One tree may grow in a different direction, reaching toward a different sky. This is why love fades. It is not that people become cruel or indifferent. It is simply that they have become someone else. One of the hardest truths in life is realizing that the person you love has changed into someone you no longer recognize. The way they hold your hand feels different. The sound of their laughter doesn't spark the same joy. The warmth you once felt in their presence now feels distant. You wonder, where did they go? But the reality is, they did not leave. They evolved. When love fades, it does not scream, it whispers. It withdraws in quiet moments. In the way they stop looking at you the same way. In the way their touch becomes hesitant. In the way their voice no longer carries the same warmth. And finally, love does not just disappear, it transforms. The person you once knew so deeply is still there, but they are no longer the same version of themselves that once loved you. So, if you find yourself in this situation, do not chase the love that is fading. Do not hold on to the past, hoping to bring it back. Instead, accept what Zen has always taught. Love is not meant to be possessed. It is meant to be experienced. And when it changes, as all things do, we must let it go with grace. How to let go without suffering. The Zen approach. When love fades, the hardest part is not losing the other person. It is learning how to let go without drowning in sorrow. In Zen philosophy, suffering arises not from loss itself, but from our resistance to impermanence. The tighter we cling to something that is leaving, the more pain we create for ourselves. To truly move forward, we must learn to let go with grace. This does not mean forgetting or denying love. It means accepting its nature. Here are 3 principles that will help you release love without suffering. 1. Do not chase the bird that has flown. The worst thing you can do when someone withdraws their love is to chase after them. Trying to force them to stay will only deepen the wounds, both yours and theirs. Imagine holding a small bird in your hands. It perches there, free and unrestrained. It sings because it feels safe. But if you grasp it tightly, fearing it will fly away, what happens? The bird will struggle, feel trapped, and eventually flee at the first chance it gets. Love is like that bird. It stays because it chooses to, not because you hold on to it. The moment love begins to fade, forcing it to stay will not rekindle it. It will only suffocate it. A young man once came to a Zen master, heartbroken over the loss of a woman he deeply loved. "Master," he asked, "I do not understand. I have done everything for her, yet she has left. How do I bring her back?" The master smiled and took the young man to a large tree. He pointed to a leaf, golden and trembling in the wind. "Would you ask the tree to hold on to its falling leaves?" "No, master," the young man replied. "That would be impossible. The leaves must fall when their time comes." The master nodded. "Then why do you ask love to stay when it has already begun to leave? Love, like the seasons, must change. You do not mourn the falling leaves. You simply admire them while they last and trust that spring will bring new ones." The lesson is simple. Love that is left is not meant to be chased. It is meant to be honored, thanked, and let go. 2. Release love, not your heart. One of the biggest misconceptions about love is that it is something we own. But in truth, love is not a possession. It is an experience. When someone leaves, it is easy to feel as if they have taken a part of you with them. But the truth is, love is not something you lose. It flows through you, touches you, changes you, but it never truly belongs to you. Before becoming a monk, a young man fell deeply in love with a woman. They shared years of joy, but one day, she left him for someone else. Heartbroken, he sought refuge in a monastery, hoping to escape his pain. He asked the abbot, "How do I erase her from my heart?" The abbot laughed and replied, "Why would you erase something that made you who you are?" The young man was confused. "But if I do not forget her, I will always suffer." The abbot placed a cup of tea in front of him. "This tea is warm now, but soon it will be cold. Do you grieve when it cools, or do you simply drink it while it is warm and move on?" The young man was silent. "Love is like this tea," the abbot continued. "You do not own it. You only experience it. If love has left, do not mourn its departure. Be grateful that it once warmed your soul. To let go does not mean to forget. It means to release the illusion of ownership. Love may leave, but its lessons, its beauty, and its growth remain within you. 3. Love yourself as you love them. When we lose love, we often feel empty, as if a part of ourselves has vanished. This is an illusion. one created by the idea that love completes us. But the truth is, you are whole, even without them. Zen teaches that meditation is the path to understanding the self. When love leaves, meditation helps us sit with the pain rather than run from it. Instead of seeking distractions, sit in silence. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Observe the emotions as they arise. You will realize that pain is like a passing storm. It feels overwhelming in the moment, but it is never permanent. Meditation teaches you to witness your emotions without becoming trapped in them. You are not your pain. You are not your heartbreak. You are the observer, watching them pass like clouds in the sky. A powerful Buddhist practice for healing after loss is metta, loving-kindness, meditation. Instead of holding on to bitterness, metta encourages you to send love and good wishes to yourself and even to the person who left. 1. Sit in a quiet place. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. 2. Repeat these words silently. May I be happy. May I be at peace. May I be free from suffering. 3. Now, think of the person who has left. Repeat the same words for them. May they be happy. May they be at peace. May they be free from suffering. At first, this will be difficult. You may resist sending love to someone who has hurt you. But over time, this practice releases the burden of resentment, replacing it with peace. To let go does not mean to stop loving. It means to love without attachment. Letting go of love is not about forgetting. It is about accepting. Do not chase love that is left. Like a bird, it was never meant to be caged. Do not mourn what was. Love is not something you lose. It is something that has changed you. Do not seek love outside of yourself. Everything you have ever needed has always been within you. In the end, Zen teaches that the art of love is also the art of letting go. And when you learn to let go, you will finally be free. At the end of his long and arduous journey, the traveler reached the edge of a vast and flowing river. He had walked for miles, carrying the weight of a love that had faded, burdened by the ache of its loss. As he stood there, watching the water move endlessly forward, something within him shifted. He saw how the river did not cling to its banks. It did not try to hold onto the stones beneath it or resist the currents that shaped its course. The river simply flowed, accepting every twist and turn, every change in depth, every rock in its path. And in that moment, he understood. Love is not something to be held onto. It is not an object to own or a possession to keep. Love is something to be experienced. It is meant to move through us, to shape us, to change us, but never to be controlled. And when love leaves, it is not a loss. It is simply a transformation. Just as the river does not mourn the waters that have passed, we too must learn to accept that love is always in motion. It comes, it touches us, and sometimes it moves on. But that does not mean it was not real. It does not mean it was wasted. Every love leaves an imprint, just as every wave leaves a mark on the shore before retreating back into the sea. If you are facing the pain of love fading, do not resist it. Do not chase after it with desperation, as if you could force it to stay. Love that is forced is no longer love. It becomes a cage. Instead, bow to it. Thank it for its presence, for the lessons it taught you, for the moments it gave you. Let it move on with grace, just as the river continues on its path. For love is like the seasons, beautiful, fleeting, and always in motion. You do not mourn the arrival of autumn when summer fades, nor do you grieve when spring blossoms replace the barren winter. Each season comes when it is meant to, and each season leaves when its time has passed. Love is the same, and just as the river does not stop flowing, just as the seasons always return, love will find you again, not in the same form, not in the same way, but in a new chapter of your life, waiting to be experienced once more. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to take a deep breath and reflect. What if love was never meant to be possessed, only cherished? What if loss was not an ending, but an opening for something new? What if true peace comes not from holding on, but from learning to let go? When you embrace the impermanence of love, you free yourself from suffering. You begin to see that love does not disappear, it simply transforms. And when you no longer cling to the past, you create space for love to flow back into your life in ways you never imagined. If you found value in this message, I invite you to be part of this journey toward peace, wisdom, and self-discovery. Subscribe to Zen Mind Journey for more insights on love, life, and the power of letting go. Like this video if you believe that love should be understood, not feared. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever struggled with letting go? What lessons has love taught you? Your story could help someone else on their path. Thank you for being here. May you walk forward not in search of love, but in acceptance of it, wherever it may come, however it may leave.